This edition of MacVoices is supported by Headspace. Meditation made simple. Visit headspace.com/MacVoices for a free 1-month trial. Welcome to MacVoices Live on Facebook. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we do this live every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. We invite you to come and join us in the Zoom room or in chat on Facebook to talk about whatever our topic is for this time around. And we do have a topic tonight. But, you know, it also is one of those things where the topics seem to go from one to another and whatever anybody wants to bring up. So what we start with is seldom what we end up with, but that's just the way it is. And people are still arriving now, so which is not a bad thing. So, yeah, we got one more. So I will I'll allow them to pop in here, and as their audio is connecting, let's go around the room, find out who's here, and we'll have a little fun. So taking my screen as I always do, Mr. David Ginsburg is here. David, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here, as always.
It's always a blast. Frank Petrie is here. Frank, good to see you. Frank was changing from earbuds to hardwires, so he's still working on that. So we'll come back to Frank. Kelly Guimont is here in her very own Star Wars fighter, I do believe.
It's
Kelly,
the Millennium Falcon cockpit. Hi.
Okay, I thought so, but I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure. and it looks like there's trouble approaching behind her.
There could be. We'll have to wait and see.
Mr. Guy Serle is here as well. Guy, good to see you.
Hello. Thank you.
What'd
It's
you
good
just
to be
say
here.
about trouble approaching?
Yeah.
Well,
It's good to be seen.
Death Star Guy. Yeah, well.
Red 5 standing by.
And last but absolutely not least, Mr. Andrew Orr. Andrew, welcome. It's great to have you.
Hey, I showed up just in time. Good to be here.
You got in under the wire. And what is this, 3 weeks in a row? This is good.
Yeah.
That's a record.
Yeah. You clearly have no life, but thank you for being here.
Exactly.
As compared to...
Yeah. Anyway, let's not do that, Guy.
Okay, sorry.
So the topic for tonight actually is Andrew inspired it, and he inspired it by really not knowing it. I think he was talking about where we can find him, which we always do at the end of the show. You know, find out where you can contact the folks that show up here to talk. And he said something about where he hangs out online. And something about that phrasing, Andrew, really resonated with me as to where we all spend our time online, because there are so many options out there. I think a lot of us think of the social networks as the main places to hang out online. If I remember correctly, though, you said that you hang out quite a bit on Reddit.
Yeah. Kelly likes to make fun of me. I do tend to use Reddit a lot, I think. So my social media is between Snapchat and Reddit. So eventually, you know, probably starting a couple years ago, I decided to start using Facebook a lot less because I ended up writing a lot of bad things about them. And so I tried to think, like, you know, what's a good alternative to Facebook? And so I came across Reddit. I had known of it for a while. You know, they like to call themselves, this is the front page of the internet. I had never really explored it until then. I think it was, you know, literally just a couple years ago now. I do like Reddit. I think, you know, they always say that about social media. You probably shouldn't get your news from it. But a lot of news and breaking news does actually happen on there. So I think you can get news from it. It's just maybe it depends on which subreddit it is. And speaking of subreddits,
a lot of Twitter's a conduit, right? Like, I mean, a lot of the stuff that gets posted on Reddit is like something like this is happening right now. Here's a link to it from a news source or something. It's not usually like someone on Reddit going, I looked out the window and this is what I see right now in my neighborhood. Like there's a little bit of that, but at least what I've seen it's more of a conduit for like, this is something that is happening right now. Here's a live feed of it from my local news station or whatever. So it does end up being sometimes breaking news or something like that, but it's the link out to something else because everybody's in a slightly different portion of the world and puts it together that way. At least that's been my impression of the stuff that I've done on Reddit, which is not a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point. So like Twitter is probably something for on the ground breaking news, but then a link will get posted to Reddit and then that's where they go follow it. And speaking of subreddits, like I said before, so a subreddit is just like different communities online, and there is pretty much a subreddit for anything you can think of. Like there are meme pages, but then there are also plenty of really good Apple subreddits where people post, personal stories, news, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it really is an interesting website to use.
And I find it really interesting that both you and Kelly jumped right away to the news thing, as opposed to the idea. Because when you said what you did about hanging out, I have a completely different, I guess, version of what that conjured up for me. It feels like, okay, that's the place I go to check in. And as you said, Andrew, I played with Reddit a little bit, and I kind of stayed away from it, honestly, because I felt like if I got into it too much, I would never go anywhere else. Because there's so many subreddits for so many things, so many very specific interests. I mean, like very specific interests, and you could easily get sucked down into those. And I found the interface, not bad, but just not terribly easy to navigate between a lot of subreddits. And so it was, I mean, it was fine, but it just didn't strike me as something like, oh my God, I really loved it.
So there's a rat hole subreddit?
Yeah,
probably.
There's a mouse hole subreddit and a rat hole subreddit and a rat house subreddit and a rat tunnel subreddit and a mouse tunnel subreddit.
Big
Andrew, which ones am I missing?
Guinea pig.
Well, if you like Wikipedia, I'm sure there's a K-hole subreddit.
Well, and that's kind of exactly it. You could. It's worse than the old Usenet news groups, where there seemed to be a news group for every single little.
It's a lot like
interest.
that, actually.
Yeah. I want to make sure Mark Fuccio just showed up again. Mark, great to see you as always.
And what's his background?
Another new background. What is that one?
What is that one? That is the Whisk computer, because before there was RISC, there was Whisk, which was created by Gene Amdahl way back when, out of vacuum tubes. And Whisk stands for, I think, a Wisconsin Integrally Synchronized Computer. So I was sort of on this theme of old technology, and searched the internet and found this image. So actually, I had seen this, seen the computer itself, because I worked for Gene Amdahl back in the early 1980s. So just a little bit of computer trivia.
Really, that's interesting. That's interesting. And now that whole computer can probably be on half a chip, a quarter of a chip.
Yeah. Oh, it would. I mean, your iPhone would blow it away. But that just shows the
SEO calculator watch.
SEO watch would blow that away too. Yes.
Well, we're talking about where to hang out online. So
it's dangerous. Don't do it.
Well, there is that. David, where do you hang out online?
Well, I mean, I spend a fair amount of time on Facebook and on Twitter. I probably use those two mostly, scanning looking for news stories and such for my podcast. And I had started using Reddit a little more than I had in the past. I use a newsreader that I keep, feeds of, including I put the MacVoices magazine in there as a feed, so I monitor that too in my feeds here. But there's an Apple Reddit that's very, very popular, that I go in there and I find out a lot of stuff about that all the time. So, but Facebook probably more in the social type of discussion, but Twitter I'm probably pretty on top of things, what goes on with Twitter too. More so just, looking for news, looking for what's going on in the world kind of things. Not to create any battles or fights or any of that kind of stuff, because that's where, and I see why a lot of people get kind of turned off from Facebook, because you hear a lot of the stuff that goes on that you try to avoid. And so I stay in the nice areas. I have my Twitter feed is focused specifically on technology. I don't have any politics in any of my feeds. You can have our president do his own thing. I don't even follow him. I don't want to look at anything. So I keep my Twitter feed very, very focused to technology. And I mentioned this to you before, I have Twitter feeds that pop up on my iPhone, so it shows so like anytime the Mac Observer has a news story, I see it. Anytime Mac Rumors has a story, I see it. So it tells me, so I'll know. I mean, I knew about the sales. We just talked about Salesforce and buying Slack. That popped up right on in my notification, and I knew right away. So that's the kind of way I take and use social media, where I'm hanging out online, I guess you could say, is that way.
Okay. Frank, do you hang out online?
I basically touch base, and what I tend to do is pimp for a lot of everybody's shows. So everybody's show that I know, I forward it to everybody. I retweet it to everybody, and I just visit like twice a day. I do.
Thank you.
Well, Slack.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
thank you. Chuck, yes. I saw a guy. I saw you this morning for a little bit. You're going, I wonder if anybody's watching, and I'm like, I'm here. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Should I empty
good
the
old
ashtray?
Guy's daily drive. It's not every day, but it's.
But,
Frank is like the eye in the sky.
You did 2 in a row. I was impressed.
I've been screwing around lately doing. Have you seen the little placards I've done for Mac OS Ken? I put on Instagram every now and then.
I've seen those. See you post them.
Oh, yeah, are you the one doing it? Yeah.
Yeah, just for the fun of it. I used to do some stuff for your cohort, Allison. But she thought my sense of humor after a while was getting a little off base.
Allison thought your sense of humor was getting no, never mind.
Well, I was coming up with it was weird. I was full of stuff for the Patreon pitch, and then the pandemic hit. And I was doing some regular stuff. And then one night they sort of pointed out to me that I was pronouncing the silicast with a Z, which made me think of Godzilla.
Yes.
So I went into a thing from there that I spent hours producing an audio show. And that never made it to air. Yeah,
that sounds amazing.
Where's something
I still have it.
I need to hit myself in the kneecap to keep from saying anything.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Well,
this will probably come as no surprise, but when my kids were little, they and my wife really, really got into Godzilla when the Godzilla 2000 movie came out.
Yeah.
Our house is filled with various, from about this big to about this big, Godzilla figures. And there was actually a woman online, and she's since stopped, but I used to get a lot of the figures from her company. And so we have like Godzilla figurines all over this house. And sometimes it frightens me.
Kelly, I know that you were active a number of different places. I think you're active on micro.blog, but you're also active other places as well, are you not?
I don't do a lot of microblog anymore. I don't do Facebook. I gave up on Facebook a long time ago because it just never seemed like a fun place to hang out. Like I would scroll through a little bit see some stuff. Even before it got political, like I couldn't figure out what was interesting about it. And some of the very early stories about what Facebook was doing with the information made me a lot less inclined to give them more. So like Facebook never really stuck. Like I've been there forever, but like you can't really find a whole lot that I've posted there generally. So now I hang out in Slack, and the other 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 Slack. There are a lot of Slacks. My sidebar is full, and it's the small icon view, and it's all the way down the side of the screen. Because there's like different groups of people I associate with there in various ways. So I use Slack for a lot of things. I use Twitter for the news piece of it. Like Andrew was saying, like the on the ground kind of things. Like it is hands down the best place to get local news for me here in Portland. So that's hands down the easiest way for me to find out what's going on, where's it happening, who's it happening to, and then and like I said, a lot of different Slacks, and like Twitter is a place I've just been for a really long time, so like I'm familiar with it. And I think part of what works for me with Twitter is that it's what I make it. You know, people talk about Twitter being terrible, but part of what makes Twitter terrible for a lot of people, like if it's a bad experience, it's probably because you're following somebody that does nothing but retweet a particular political thing, or you're following somebody who only ever talks about the news or only ever talks about conspiracy theories or whatever it is. And you can unfollow that person. So like Twitter's what you turn it into. And so I use a lot of lists to keep up. I get a lot of Mac news there, Apple news there. I interact with a bunch of like old school folks, you know, people who've been there, you know, 11, 12, 13 years like I have. And so like that tends to be where I spend a lot of my time, is sort of in the Twitter lists. And I'll occasionally scroll through like my main timeline and just sort of see what's up. Because news does break on Twitter a lot. Whatever it is, whether it's political news or pop culture news, or, you know, someone got arrested, someone passed away, some sort of political shenanigan, some sort of news event, like that stuff tends to happen on Twitter. And it tends to be like the person responsible or directly viewing the event is the person who posted it on Twitter. So to take my city, for example, I am in Portland. I am downtown. It is after dark. Here's what the protest looks like right here from my phone. I can show you it. And that's a very different. That's a different experience from like what Andrew and I were talking about on Reddit, where it's like somebody on Reddit will go, Kelly's in downtown Portland at a protest right now. You can go check out her stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, and then like maybe Reddit's where that the conversation about it happens, but like the initial thing that you get from Reddit is a link to a web page or a link to a news story or a link to a live stream or something like that. So that's like with Twitter, there's a lot that sort of like as it happens there. So somebody is in person at the place where it's happening and they're updating you as it happens. This is what the person said on the call, in the press conference, you know, to me just now, whatever. So that's one of the interesting things about Twitter, is also just sort of the breadth of people that are there. There's loads and loads and loads of different people there. So like if you don't want political Twitter, you don't have to have it. And if all you want is yarn Twitter or general crafting Twitter or photography Twitter, like you can have just that if you want to. It's great. I have a little bit of a variety of them, and I enjoy that.
Today's MacVoices is supported by Headspace. Meditation made simple. If people keep telling you to try meditation and you're like, when would I have the time? You should check out Headspace. Headspace makes it easy to get started and stay engaged with meditation because they let you pick the kind of meditation that suits you. They do that by letting you target your goal first, then tailor the kind of meditation to that goal. So, if you want to improve your sleep, they take you down one path. If you want to sharpen your focus, then they take you down another. If you want to meditate with your kids, no problem. Headspace has morning meditations for that too. Headspace's approach to meditation and mindfulness can reduce stress, improve your sleep, boost your focus, and increase your overall sense of well-being. Headspace has me paying more attention to meditation than I have in years, and I have a feeling that that focus will continue because I'm finding it both beneficial and enjoyable. You deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/MacVoices. That's headspace.com/MacVoices for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditations for every situation. That's the best deal offered right now, so head to headspace.com/MacVoices today. Thanks to Headspace for their support of MacVoices. Yeah, and that's why I always like Twitter. The idea that I can follow Kelly, but she doesn't have to follow me. Or I can follow Andrew, but he doesn't have to follow me. Right. So I can follow who I want without, and vice versa. Then someone else can follow me. And if it's somebody that I really don't care about seeing, their grandkids or, their cat or whatever, that I'm not going to be burdened with it. And so that's sort of one-way interaction is why I've enjoyed Twitter more than Facebook, but Facebook has its own set of benefits, if you will, and detriments. Guy, where do you hang out?
Well, of course, on Twitter, though, I've spent a lot of 2020 muting people just because I've gotten tired. Seriously.
He means me. Don't lie. He means me.
No. I don't want to say I don't, but there are groups of well-known people who all they do is talk about political stuff. And it's like, hey, how about something about what's going on in your career? How about something about what's the next movie coming out along those things?
What about you? Yeah.
Yeah. I really don't give a damn about your politics. It means nothing to me. So when it gets too onerous, I just mute them. I don't block them because, what's the point? I just mute them and then I don't see them in my feed. And kind of the same thing with Facebook. My family, and I imagine
right
these
there.
days,
that's what I don't think about Facebook, because I feel obligated to the people on Facebook that I follow on Facebook, because I will see that aunt at Thanksgiving who will want to know why I unfollowed her on Facebook. And I don't want to have to put up, this year aside, I don't want to have to deal with that,
but I don't typically, in all the years I've been on Facebook, I have blocked, I think, a grand total of 4 or 5 people. For the most part, when they just get to be too much of a pain in the ass, I just mute them so that I don't see them in my feed. And because we're still connected, if there's something that they really want to talk to me about, they can IM me and I'll get it that way. But I don't want to see, I do belong to a group on Facebook called Cativation. So, there's that. I've also been checking out a lot of some of the different social media sites that have been coming out lately. One I would not recommend unless you are of a particular political bend is Parlay. It's super cringeworthy, and I joined up and was like, well, here's all the people you should follow. And I looked at this list of people. It's like, no, I really don't want to follow any of those people. So I haven't been back. There's another one that is kind of like Facebook Lite. And so far, the people that are moderating in the groups are doing what they can to keep out the scam artists, to keep out, the people with nothing but a political agenda and so on and so forth. Is called MeWe. And it's actually kind of refreshing. I belong to a couple of Apple groups there, and I know this is going to sound crazy. They pretty much just talk about Apple stuff. There's a couple of VW, Volkswagen groups that I belong to. There's a cat group that I belong to, and a few other things that that are of interest to me. And the way that the site is laid out, the chats and groups kind of intermingle, so you can kind of jump from one to the other without having to say, okay, well, I need to look at this completely different layout to see what's going on in the chats or what's going on in the groups, because they kind of blend a little bit. And so it's been a kind of a pleasant experience. And so I'm kind of enjoying it for now. And if it turns out that, you know, a particular political group or another, you know, force their presence onto it, then it's like, okay, I'll just go away. But for the most part, it's I guess it's mostly Facebook and Twitter. I have an Instagram account, but I don't really do much with it. I have a Pinterest account. I don't really do much with that either. For the, you know, between being on or doing 3 different podcasts, and then of course occasionally coming into here as well, I don't really have a whole lot of spare time. So I pick and choose the things that I'm going to do online very, very carefully. And I have gone to Reddit on occasion. Reddit to me is like complete and total anarchy. You know, I don't see how people manage to keep track of what's going on.
Like,
well, no, there are some pretty nasty subreddit groups that will.
Okay, that's true. But by and large, Reddit itself is benevolent anarchy. It is absolutely anarchy. Don't get me wrong. But yes, and some of it is malevolent, to be sure. But
you can also say that. Yeah, I was going to say you can say that about some Facebook groups and
sure.
and Twitter lists and everything. So
well, the difference between, and here's the difference between like Facebook and Twitter and a site like MeWe. Facebook and Twitter have, and how to say this, they've kind of bowed to a lot of political pressure. And there are things, for better or for worse, that they just don't allow on the site, while at the same time selling advertising that pretty much says the same thing. But putting that aside, the thing, unless you are in a group that has really, really strong moderators, it's easy to get lost in the craziness that is Facebook and Twitter. And part of the reason that it's become so crazy is just because of how big both of those platforms have become. And it's almost unwieldy at this point, whereas the smaller social media sites haven't gotten to that yet. So you have, for not so much the governing body of whoever's managing the site itself, but the people that are managing the groups that you belong to. Because MeWe doesn't have the same type of front page that you see in Facebook. Facebook's algorithms kind of say, oh, well, you went here one time and you went here one time and you looked at this person's stuff, so you'll probably like this stuff too. And it just all gets dumped right in. Whereas MeWe is more focused on, okay, well, you say you like this group, this group, this group, and this group. So we're going to show you the stuff from those groups. And that's it. That's all you see. If there's other stuff you want to see, you go and you look for it. You search the groups and you find the groups that you're more interested in. So I find that very refreshing as compared to Facebook and Twitter kind of making those decisions for me.
Yeah, I was going to mention too, people, not a lot of people are big fans of TikTok, but TikTok is starting to build a lot of traction now. I just started on there. I'm probably following like 5 different people on there, and a couple of them are very good, do really neat videos about iPhone stuff. They give iPhone tips, or they do any Apple discussions, and there's, of course, that's what's great about TikTok, is it's got the short little videos. You don't have to spend a lot of time reviewing it, and if you miss something, it'll replay it and you just go through it again. So I've been starting to lean, go a little towards that. Now everything's kind of blowing over with all that political stuff with that. It's been a pretty decent platform. And then Instagram, I would disagree a little bit. Instagram, I do find out about a lot of stuff. I mean, you, Chuck, of course, posts a lot of stuff for the shows on there, and it's a place to find out about things as well. But you also got people posting pictures of their kids and their cats and everything else. But
cats,
yeah, cats.
Okay.
Also cats. Yes, cats of Instagram. You can go there. Yes,
there is a cats of Instagram.
So the one, but I haven't heard anybody say the one network that. And Mark, I want to ask you because I know this is one of yours. Your primary contact points is LinkedIn.
LinkedIn,
and I've been using LinkedIn more and more because it seems to be immune from a lot of the things that we don't like that we just said here, and it truly is a lot more business focused. At least the people that I follow. Is that the way you see it, Mark?
Yeah, I think that is true of LinkedIn. The downside is, to me, it seems to be a little bit sterile. I mean, the news on the Bing homepage, those little snippets, are a lot more exciting than, frankly, a lot of the stuff I see in LinkedIn. Because LinkedIn, again, is very, very, very business focused. So, it's good for that. But
it's a good place to make contacts in your field.
Right. But it's becoming spammy. I mean, I hate Microsoft for sending all this, stuff out, for this. It seems it's really picked up in the past year in 2020 of people you might follow or this, that, or the other thing. It's just
and now there's stories.
It's getting garbageified. Some of the stories and things are interesting. I mean, I find that.
But there's stories. And Twitter now has stories. I mean, basically, like, I don't remember what they call it, but the name is stupid and it's stories. And they weren't fun on Instagram. And I don't know if Facebook has tried to throw them at me, but I don't.
They have.
I don't go to Facebook really, so I don't know. But
what do they call
stories? Are what stories
on Facebook?
I don't know.
It's not called stories,
but it's stories.
It's stories.
It's a row of little circles at the top of like, this is going to disappear in 24 hours. Like, we all wanted to be Snapchat, and the best way we could do it was the way Instagram stories did it, where everything disappears in 24 hours or whatever it is. So that's what you do. And I was trying to get a little more involved over on LinkedIn. And then as soon as I started interacting with anything, I started getting a whole carpet bombed with notifications about all of these things. And a person you might know congratulated a person you don't know about a thing that you don't care about. I cannot find the way to turn the volume down on any of those. And I was trying to be more professional. I got a new job this year and I want to be a bigger part of that community. And I thought LinkedIn might be a good place to do that. And then LinkedIn went, I'll show you. And here we are. Now they have stories.
But I bottom line, I think LinkedIn is good for making connections and then directing with people. A lot of people, it's sort of, they're out there, they're promoting things they're doing in their business. So that's why things are coming up there. But other than that, just stay away. It's a tool. It has its purpose. But I don't carry a hammer or screwdriver around all the time either. I mean, they're useful tools too. But to me, the most interesting thing is Twitter. I mean, I abhor Facebook's policies, so I just don't use it. But Twitter, I think both you and Kelly and Guy were saying, you can use that. It's a fantastic source of news and information if you know how to use it right. Yeah. So, so that's where I go. I mean, I don't know to say I'd hang out there. My use is ebb and flow. I'm sort of now maybe at sort of a lull period, but things change. To the question of hanging out online, probably the most thing is, my RSS reader on my iPad. Every night after dinner, I go and scroll through, and I've got all sorts of different sites and different information and different content. So that's probably where I go, most, to hang out, apart from the bridge under 7th Street. But
answer me these riddles 3. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah. Yeah. But how about you? Where do you hang out online?
Sorry?
I think you've polled everybody here. Where do you hang out online?
Well,
hang out online?
I don't think I hang out online like maybe I used to. And that's why Andrew's comment struck me so hard, because before I think I could have easily said, yeah, I hung out primarily on Twitter. I don't think I've ever hung out on Facebook, but there was a time that my Twitter feed was always open, and in a corner of my screen, that not that I was obsessed. Well, maybe I was, but not. I was obsessed with every single tweet, but just to see, what was happening, and then I think it became too overwhelming or too much, and I had to do some pruning of people that I was following because they became too prolific. And again, we're not going to call any names, and it doesn't mean I don't like the what
Politific.
Well, politific, but also just verbose. I mean, times 10. And that to the point that you can't, your feed is filled up with their comments. I don't know how they had a life with the comments, with the volume of comments they were doing.
What does social media have to do with having a life?
Yeah.
Well, and Guy, that's almost part of the question here. I mean, because I know, like, I'll pick on Andrew and not pick on Andrew and Kelly, but the Mac Observer has comments.
I'm a big girl. I can take it.
They have comments on their site. Okay. And that's great. I shut comments down on MacVoices because it was just too much of a pain in the neck.
No,
right. Well, and it's just you, and it's not the main thing that you do. I mean, like, you have a day job, me, you have a day job. So the bulk of what you do in a day is not moderate your website. So that totally makes sense, because you could spend a little bit of time in a place where there's already other community and take care of that. I think
you hit it, Kelly. That's exactly why I tell people, contact me on social media, send me an email. My God, an email, stone knives and bearskins.
What are those?
It's so much easier to have it directed at me instead of having, and yet we live in a collaborative age where the key word in business right now is collaboration.
Yeah.
We'll have more with our MacVoices panel about where they hang out online and why in the next edition of MacVoices. We get into more of the discussions about whether social media is the only place to hang out online, and find out that there's some other places that really don't exactly qualify as social media, or maybe they do. That's part of the debate. And we get into an extended discussion about Slack. So join us for all of that and more next time on MacVoices. I'm Chuck Joyner, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.